Charles Bent was a man of ambition. He carved a name for himself from the raw, unforgiving American West. His story began with promise, a journey from the settled East to the wild frontier. Bent was a figure who straddled worlds, navigating complex relationships between Anglo-Americans, Mexicans, and Native American tribes. His life was a testament to the era's relentless expansion and the collision of cultures. Yet this ascent, so dramatic and swift, was destined for an equally dramatic and brutal conclusion. Appointed the first American civilian governor of New Mexico, Bent found himself at the epicenter of a brewing storm. The transition from Mexican to American rule was not peaceful for many. For Bent, his new position placed a target squarely on his back. He became the symbol of a new, unwelcome authority. His end came in his own home, in the heart of Taos, at the hands of a furious mob. The man who had mastered the art of negotiation was cornered and killed. His death underscored the deep animosities and the violent birth pangs of a new territory. Please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Charles Bent first saw the light of day in Charleston, Virginia in 1799. His father, Silas Bent, was a respected figure, a judge who had served in the Revolutionary War. Young Charles grew up in an environment that valued education and civic duty. The call of the West, with its whispers of fortune and uncharted territories, soon captured Bent's imagination. Seeking new opportunities, the Bent family moved westward, eventually settling in St. Louis, Missouri, around 1806. St. Louis, at that time, was a bustling gateway to the vast American frontier. For a young man like Charles, St. Louis must have been an electrifying place, teeming with the raw energy of expansion. In this vibrant frontier city, Charles and his brothers received their education. He attended Jefferson College in Pennsylvania for a time. However, the true classroom for Bent would prove to be the world of commerce and the rugged landscapes of the West. The allure of the fur trade, a lucrative and daring enterprise, was particularly strong. St. Louis was the epicenter of this trade, and men like Manuel Lisa and the Chouteau family were already legendary figures. The decision to enter the fur trade was a pivotal one. It set Charles Bent on a path that would define his life, and ultimately lead to his untimely death. The East was his past. The West, with all its perils and possibilities, was his future. The fur trade was a crucible. Charles Bent initially worked for the Missouri Fur Company, gaining invaluable experience. He learned the roots, the risks, and the complex art of dealing with various Native American tribes. These early years were formative, shaping him into a seasoned frontiersman and a shrewd trader. Around 1828, he joined forces with Saron St. Vrain, another ambitious trader. Together, they formed Bent St. Vrain and Company. This partnership was a powerful combination of Bent's organizational skills and St. Vrain's diplomatic finesse. They were a formidable team, poised to dominate the trade along the Santa Fe Trail and beyond. The company established trading posts, outfitted trapping expeditions, and cultivated relationships with tribes like the Cheyenne and Arapaho. Charles himself would later marry into a prominent New Mexican family, further cementing his ties to the region. The company became a vital economic engine, connecting the American heartland with the distant markets of Santa Fe. They navigated treacherous terrain, harsh weather, and the ever-present threat of conflict. Their wagon trains, laden with goods from the east, snaked their way across the plains. They traded manufactured goods, textiles, and hardware for furs, mules, and silver from New Mexico. This exchange was not just about profit, it was about forging connections between disparate cultures and economies. The company was more than a business. It was an institution on the frontier. Bent, St. Vrain and Company was built on a foundation of relentless effort and calculated risk. To solidify their dominance in the southwestern trade, Bent, St. Vrain and Company needed a central hub. This vision materialized as Bent's Fort, an imposing adobe structure built on the north bank of the Arkansas River in present-day Colorado. Construction began around 1833, and the fort quickly became one of the most significant trading posts in the American West. It was strategically located along the Santa Fe Trail, serving as a vital stop for traders, trappers, explorers, and eventually, the U.S. Army. The fort itself was an architectural marvel for its time and place. Its thick adobe walls, rising some 14 feet high, enclosed a large rectangular courtyard. Bastions at the corners provided defensive capabilities equipped with cannons. Inside there were storerooms, living quarters, blacksmith shops, and a billiard room for recreation. It was a bustling center of activity, a place where different worlds converged. Cheyenne and Arapaho warriors traded alongside Mexican merchants and American mountain men. The fort was a testament to Charles Bent's ambition and his understanding of the strategic importance of such an outpost. Bent's fort was not merely a commercial enterprise, it was a diplomatic and cultural crossroads. The fort provided a neutral ground where different groups could meet, trade, and sometimes resolve disputes. It was a place of exchange, not just of goods, but of information and culture. The presence of the fort helped to stabilize the region, fostering a fragile coexistence between the diverse peoples who inhabited or traversed the southern plains. The significance of Bent's fort cannot be overstated. It was the linchpin of Bent, St. Vrain and Company's trading empire. The mid-1840s brought a new and powerful force to the Southwest, the United States military. The doctrine of manifest destiny was in full swing, and tensions with Mexico were escalating. Charles Bent, with his deep connections in New Mexico and his strategic base at Bent's Fort, found himself increasingly drawn into the unfolding conflict. His knowledge of the region, its people, and its terrain was invaluable to the American authorities. When the Mexican-American War erupted in 1846, Bent's Fort became a crucial staging ground for General Stephen W. Kearny's Army of the West. Bent provided vital supplies, intelligence, and logistical support to the American forces. He accompanied Kearny's expedition as it marched towards Santa Fe. His presence lent an air of legitimacy and local expertise to the American invasion. The American occupation of Santa Fe in August 1846 was largely bloodless. With New Mexico ostensibly under American control, General Kearny needed to establish a provisional civilian government. His choice for the territory's first American governor was Charles Bent. Bent was a respected American businessman, fluent in Spanish, married to Maria Ignacia Jaramillo, a member of a prominent Taos family. However, Bent's appointment was not universally welcomed. Charles Bent assumed the governorship of New Mexico in September 1846. He faced an immense task. He had to create a functioning government in a newly conquered territory. Bent issued proclamations assuring New Mexicans that their property rights and religious freedoms would be respected. He appointed several prominent New Mexicans to positions within his government. However, these gestures were often overshadowed by the presence of American troops. Bent also had to contend with the economic disruptions caused by the war and the change in administration. Despite his efforts, Governor Bent found it difficult to win the trust and loyalty of the majority of New Mexicans. He traveled from Santa Fe to his home in Taos in January 1847, unaware that he was walking into a deadly trap. The discontent that simmered beneath the surface of American-occupied New Mexico was a complex brew. It was fueled by a potent mix of nationalism, resentment against the invaders, and economic anxieties. Many New Mexicans deeply resented the imposition of American authority. Economic factors also played a significant role in fomenting rebellion. Charles Bent, as a prominent trader, was seen by some as an agent of American economic exploitation. Religious and cultural differences added another layer to the growing unrest. The predominantly Catholic population of New Mexico was wary of the Protestant Americans. The leaders of the impending revolt, men like Tomas Ortiz and Diego Archuleta, had been plotting to overthrow the American government for months. Taos became a focal point for the conspiracy. They believed that by striking down the governor, they could ignite a widespread uprising. On the cold morning of January 19, 1847, the storm of rebellion finally broke over Taos. A mob, incited by the leaders of the revolt, descended upon the town. Their primary target was Governor Charles Bent. He was at his home, relatively unprotected. The insurgents surrounded his house. Bent, along with his family and a few others, found themselves trapped. The mob broke down the doors and poured into the house. Charles Bent was brutally attacked. He was shot with arrows and scalped alive. Despite his grievous injuries, he reportedly pleaded for the lives of his wife and children. Other American officials and sympathizers in Taos were also targeted and killed. The news of Bent's murder and the Taos revolt spread quickly. The U.S. military, under the command of Colonel Sterling Price, responded swiftly and decisively. The revolt was brutally suppressed. The Taos Revolt, though ultimately unsuccessful, was a bloody and tragic chapter in New Mexico's history. The death of Charles Bent was a stark and brutal event. His murder sent a clear message: the transition to American rule in New Mexico would not be peaceful. Bent's legacy is complex. On one hand, he was an architect of American expansion. On the other hand, for many New Mexicans, Bent represented an occupying force. Today, Charles Bent's former home in Taos stands as a historical landmark and museum. The house itself, scarred by the violence of the revolt, serves as a silent witness to his tragic end. His story remains a compelling and cautionary tale of ambition, conflict, and the high price of empire on the American frontier.